thanks, Remi, for taking the time. And yeah, I'm happy to have you here. I think I was chasing you now for a few months. And so I'm very happy that you said yes. But I would like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm also following your podcast. So happy to be here. And yeah, so for people who don't know me, I started Le Robot at Hugging Face a few months ago, maybe around 5 months ago.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's an open source project for robotics to yeah, build neural networks that control robots end to end. So using the vision, the camera stream, and the information about the motors, and directly to predict the future actions for the motors. Um, so yeah, a single neural network connected from bottom to top, and also utilities to record datasets, robotics datasets, to control robots, and to share those datasets, to visualize them online, to download them very easily. And the goal is to train a foundational model for robotics um, that would be trained on a crowdsourced dataset. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I remember that. So the first moment I got in contact with your work was when you actually said, "Yeah, I'm about to enter the Hugging Face place and bringing robotics with me and starting robotics at Hugging Face." So you popped into my feed, and yeah, because you had such a great reputation already in robotics, so. What I normally do is ask, so how did you came in contact with robotics? So if you do you belong to these kind of people who had been in the topic very early on in high school or university? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your past experience.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know that I was going to work on robotics. Um, I would say 10 years ago, I was starting at the university, maybe more than that actually. I was, I mean, computer science was very interesting to me. Um, yeah, the fact that you had the possibility to build open source software and to share it very easily. I think it was like this idea was very powerful to me, but
Mm.
I had a lot of interest. I would say maybe in the yeah, philosophical question, the deep philosophical question, like what's physics, what's life, what's consciousness, and also the computer with with all the computation and the mimicry of intelligence. It felt quite appealing to me to try yeah, to build intelligent software basically. And I discovered neural networks during the third year at the university
So when
in
was
Paris.
this? Which year are we talking about?
I would say maybe around 2012 or 13. Yeah, so just after ImageNet. Um, yeah, I had a really cool teacher of artificial intelligence. So yeah, I really enjoyed. Like before, I was not the I would say the best student. I was not working very strongly. I was just trying to discover stuff. I was curious, but I was not getting the highest grade. But when I did discover neural networks, I started yeah, becoming very good at math and so on. I worked a lot. I was so curious, and so I continued. Uh, yeah, my journey with deep learning. with computer vision because it was booming at the time, and I was very lucky because there was a very nice computer vision lab in my university.
Paris, you said,
So
correct? You're
yeah,
so you're from France and you studied in Paris, you said.
exactly at Sorbonne University. Um, and it's a very cool university because it's at the center of Paris. So as a student, it's full of life everywhere. It's not just on the campus. You really discover the city, and that's something I really enjoy. And I actually like the Hugging Face office is not far away from this
Hmm.
location. So even though I moved around and so on, I finally came back in Paris. And yeah, so I continue my journey with a master degree in computer vision and then a PhD in computer vision and no, yeah, NLP, yeah, computer vision and language. Because at the time we were making progress in terms of deep learning. And so we're starting to see some possibility to ground language into computer vision, into perception, visual understanding, and so on. So it was the start of visual question answering, like multimodal learning. Basically, um, yeah, what Andrej Karpathy was doing at the time, I think. Yeah, the boom in this multimodal learning area started uh, at the time where Andrej Karpathy was doing his PhD. And actually, also, the lectures, even at my university, they were quite theoretical in deep learning and not really practical. And it was very difficult to train neural networks, to train deep neural networks at the time. Nobody knew exactly how to do it. Even like tuning the learning rate of the stochastic gradient descent was yeah, something that nobody knew really how to do it. Adam did not exist at the time. And so the lectures from Andrej Karpathy, which were open, were super useful to a lot of people like me to get into the practical tricks, the practical knowledge to make things work very well. So yeah, so that's how I got into deep learning.
Which is interesting because normally you wouldn't think that Europe or Paris in general be a hotspot for these kind of things, right? But it seems like you have been there at the right time. And so things came together. You were mentioning the lectures that were open. You were mentioning I mean, Paris is, if you are in the European startup scene, Paris, London, Berlin, these are among the top threes for years now. So Paris is very vibrant, and so I can just imagine like this is 10 years ago, 10 year plus, and it's interesting that you said you haven't been the best student from the very beginning, but something that you said along the way is you became very good because you needed to because you are so interested in so your curiosity actually led to become a good math student mathematical because you do need to do these kind of things when you would like to understand more about the topic, right? So it's interesting to uh, have this kind of intrinsic motivation to become good at something that is very hard, right, for a lot of people. And I remember that when I was studying, there's always these 10% that are very good at math. So they had been good at math from the very early age, right? And all through school, high school, university. And then I do met a few people. A good friend of mine is doing a PhD in mathematics at the moment. And he was the same as you. He said, I needed to become good to keep continue learning in this topic. So thanks for going back there. And what happened after you finished? No, you said that you went even deeper into academia because you did the PhD. You did this also in Paris.
Yeah, yeah, at the same lab. I was also super lucky because I met so many friends along the way,
Mm-hmm.
and we started that were actually much better than me, so I could learn from them. And then we started our PhD together in the same lab.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I mean the PhD is can be a very different experience. Um, it really depends on your surrounding, your thesis advisor, the PhD students you can potentially work with, their subjects, their interests, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mean now we are maybe a bit more lucky because we can make friends on internet.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the my biggest advantage, I would say, is that I was able to create this network of friends and to share our knowledge and interest, um, and uh, and to yeah to you know when you start building knowledge in a few areas, then you can make the connection between those areas, and that's a way to do interesting research. It's not the only one. I mean, there are many styles of research, but that's one of the way. And I think it's quite powerful because you get to see a lot of things just by trying to yeah by following the research of other people, trying to make connection with your own research and so on. And so yeah, as I was doing multimodal learning at the time, it was quite relevant for me to study natural language and computer vision and other stuff.
You said that you liked the idea of open source very early on, and it seems like the way you studied and the way you did your PhD is the basic foundation of open source, right? So, uh, what you actually experienced, how much advantage there is if you share a knowledge versus you fight and protect your knowledge, which has been in academia the topic for hundreds of years, right? Only the very few who had access to knowledge were the very few ones who had access to power or the leverage to power. So it's interesting that you say, because I experienced the power of open source in a knowledge way, right, for your studies and for your PhD. This actually led to the technology advantage that open source has. So because 20 years ago, I don't know if the term open source, I need to look it up. It was such as common as today, right? And now with a few companies betting on open source, and we come to this later because I remember that I asked you something a few weeks ago about open source. Some companies are even betting on that, right? Because there is an advantage of hiring the best people in the world, but how many best people in the world can you actually hire versus how many best people are in the world, and if they're connected, how much power can that have? Um, if when you finished the PhD, what happened after that? I have a few founders or a few people that I talked to in the podcast over the last 6 months or 8 months actually, that stuck to academia, right? So it's interesting, and they like the atmosphere, they like the way of living. So what happened with you? What was your idea afterwards?
Oh, oh yeah, just a note. I think open source, it was used, I mean, it did not exist 20 years ago or maybe 30 years, but it was called free software or something. Like,
Okay,
yeah. Um, I mean, like it's not a new concept. It's just the name changed a bit,
true.
but um, uh, and um, and yeah, I also experienced the power of sharing knowledge. And what's cool with academia is that if you're lucky with the right environment, everyone is really fully focused and passionate and willing to share and make progress together, basically. And there is an idea, a pretty cool idea. It's like uh, you can work on a you can be working on a project, on a research project, and actually you don't get to publish it because someone publish it publish the same idea instead of you. So sometimes it can be very disappointing. But you know, if someone can do the work and build this knowledge while you can focus on something that is original to you, unique to you, it's actually much better. And the full community can make faster progress. So there is this idea also in the open source, and it's really to optimize so that we can make faster progress as a whole. I feel, yeah. Um, and yeah, but there is one thing, there is one issue in academia is that sometimes you don't have enough compute. So you can focus um, on various subjects. I did a postdoc, and so I was focusing on explainability methods and um, and neuroscience, like computational neuroscience.
Mm.
And this type of research don't require as much compute as LLM or yeah or other project like this. But at some point, I was curious about the large scale experiments. Um, I think it's nice to be able to have a bit of both
Mhm.
when possible. Um, and uh, and I also had the chance to do an internship at Tesla during my PhD. So
Tesla US.
yeah, Tesla US. Yeah, so the story was quite cool. So during my PhD, I was working on computer vision. So I work on an open source software called pre-trained models.pytorch to host a lot of pre-trained vision models like VGG 16, Overfit, the ResNet trained on Torch 7, and like very old school like Inception and Inception V1 or V2, V3, these old school vision networks. And somehow Andrej Karpathy reached out to me because he was interested about this library. And so that's how I got the possibility to do this internship. So that's another power of open source. Like the reach that you have create opportunities.
But so you're listening to his lectures years before that, and now you had the opportunity to work together with him.
Yeah, it was. I mean, at the time, I was so happy, and I mean, I told him that I was so thankful for his lectures. And so so yeah, I think that's another way to have a lot of reach to do open source teaching.
I mean, just the possibility to use because through a few of the problems you need to go through on your own. So I started mechanical engineering, and there is some math you do need to go through on your own to understand some concepts. And so just reading it and seeing it seeing it somewhere does not help you on the thinking process, right? You do need to go through them yourself, but very often sometimes there's just a little piece of puzzle missing to understand, so you can and we used YouTube heavily, and there was always a lot of people, very amateur people that loading up some videos on YouTube with basic math or some concepts, some calculations, so you can do bigger jumps when you see it on somewhere else. So having the opportunity and being almost in the lecture of him while you're sitting on your computer in the lab or in the evening or on the weekend. And I think this is such a great time to be alive and really being able to, yeah, being connected to people that were thousands of miles or kilometers away from you. And yeah, I'm glad that you had the opportunity to work with him. So this was an internship, or maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this because it is an interesting story.
Yeah. So it was an internship, a 3 months internship. So the first time I was going to California. So I mean, it was exactly what I expected. At the time, I was able to focus during 3 months and to learn a lot, to train large-scale experiments on a vision model for self-driving. So at the time, it was really state-of-the-art in vision because there were so many tasks, so many perception tasks like segmentation, object detection, tracking. I mean, the goal was to, I would say, to build a certain 3D understanding of the scene so that yeah, you could take a better decision to drive the car safely. And so yeah, very it was very interesting, and I met yeah, really good engineers there, and I learned so much. So, but yeah, because it's Tesla, I worked like for 3 months fully. Then I took some vacation at the end with my friends visiting from France. But yeah, it was intense. And so after that, I finished my PhD, did a postdoc, and I decided I had this opportunity again to come back at Tesla. And this time it felt a bit more like a robotics project because you could feel, I mean, you could feel at the time that we were going towards end to end. And that the key would be training, yeah, neural networks on the precious data that Tesla was able to collect from people driving the cars.
And which year are we talking about now?
I think it was maybe 4 years, so yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and so yeah, and I just I I think the past. I mean, in my research career, I was really interested about learning um, human level behaviors.
Mm.
Um, I began with computer vision, then multimodal learning with VQA, like asking questions to a neural network about what it perceived from an image. So a kind of human level behavior for perception and language. And then driving, which is a subset of the navigation task that we do as human. A difficult subset though, because it's quite risky. You need a very accurate system. But this system doesn't drink alcohol, and so and it is a race focus. So you could see a way for the system to have a really good impact. Um, and so basically saving life also. So there was this very appealing application of self-driving as well, um, to the more scientific interest. And yeah, so I worked there for a few years in California, and I that's how I started to become a bit more familiar with robotics because self-driving cars, yeah, self-driving cars are robots on wheel.
And coming from France, which has their very own dynamics and culture, and so the way you guys work together, and now being in the US, and now working for Tesla, which has its very own dynamics and very own pressure and level of ambition, so to speak. How is that for you? I can imagine that it has been a very international team, I guess, or was it mainly American engineers that you were working together with?
No, it's very international. Um, yeah, you can meet, yeah, really all the nationalities. You can meet a lot of Europeans, a lot of people from China or Taiwan, um, a lot of people from India, and
Hmm.
also a lot of yeah, American, Canadian, yeah, very yeah, all the nationality. And yeah, I mean, Tesla is a special company because of I mean, I think it's one of the company that received the highest number of headlines in journals and because of Musk and and yeah, and the ambition and yeah, the fact that it is really technology focused and driven. I think yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, it was a different company, I think. We didn't have the humanoid robot at the time. Elon Musk did not buy Twitter at the time. So I think the vibe was a bit different.
Hmm.
Andrej Karpathy was there. So
Hmm.
I could see Tesla evolving. It was super interesting. Uh, I I think it was also very intense, but in a different way than during my internship. It was a bit more engineering focused because the goal was really to scale things and to reach the limits of the current stack, I would say, which was at the time not end to end.
Mm.
So so yeah, it was very insightful. Also, I met different people, but very nice and very passionate people. Um, I think you can. I mean, yeah, it's. I think you have this kind of opportunity, it's difficult to say no because you're sure to learn a lot. Um, and it was funny because um, my intuition was right. We started switching to end, but I didn't predict that we would also, I mean, Tesla would also bet on humanoid robots. That
Mm.
like, um, yeah, deep learning progress were so important and so fast that we could tackle this kind of problem. Yeah, this at the time I didn't predict it. I remember that I mean the project was very secret before it was announced, and even when we saw Musk talking about it, at first I thought it was a joke. Like I could not believe that yeah, and finally I had the possibility to work on it. So this was I was so happy because this was even more ambitious than driving because we could tackle even more um, human level behavior with this form factor.
I'm such a huge fan of people that are very polarizing because there's always it not necessarily, but I mean, as you said, right? A few years ago, Elon Musk didn't yeah, Twitter was still on its own, so to speak, and he was much more focused on the company itself. And even though there's some haters and then there's some fanboys, right? So you have two extreme ends of the spectrum. You do need to admit that Tesla is pushing a lot, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk, and some things had been delivered much later on, or still not on the table, but it always pushed people not only in the company itself but competitors as well, right? I do remember the hate in Germany, because Germany is a car company, a car country, right? Or country with a lot of automotive. So they're very proud of themselves. So there is no American company that can do these kind of things instead of us. And right now we have a revival of fuel in Germany. EV is dead. These kind of things, right? And it's very hard to build cars. So I remember that there was a lot of hate, and then all those fanboys when stock was available, and a lot of people had the first time their hands on stock and being investors, so to speak, and seeing the stock rise and people making money of that. So I remember there was a lot of controversy around Tesla, but I remember also when I heard about the Tesla bot, you always can think, I mean, there's a lot of storytelling in startups, right? And even though Tesla is now had been in the game for 20 years almost, right? There is still the startup vibe around Tesla somehow, versus Porsche or BMW or Mercedes or Volkswagen that had been in the game for 100 years. Yeah. So it is interesting to see someone who is really pushing, and these companies are very old, so structures are very hard. I was working for Siemens for a few years, and it's same kind of company. You see people working on the same position for 30 years almost, right? So it's very hard to get innovation going, especially if engineers are trained to be risk adverse, which you do need to be somehow to build planes and build yeah, very important like a bridge or structures, right? Coming back to your story that um, you've been in the lab, you've done an internship, you've been an insider for a few years now, and then you see someone who's the spokesperson and the CEO and the one who gives the direction of the company, speaking about something that is so different, and you are laughing and thinking, okay, is he joking? Is this one of his like marketing stance that everyone is like, and now your work gets influenced by this. Yeah, very interesting. And maybe you can tell us a bit more about how you actually made the transition then within the team, because you said this was high confidential, very small, protected teams, I guess, who knew about it. How was it for you to be invited into this inner circle?
Um, yeah, I think um, yeah, I would say a good strategy when you build um, various products that rely on similar infrastructure is to not build silo, but to have your engineers um, flow, you know, and move sometimes. Of course, you need to build a certain structure, but it's important to have people move around in the company, I would say. Um, Especially if they are able to share their knowledge. Um, so I think I didn't know much about like hardware in robotics at the time, so I was
Mm.
quite curious about it. And I had the experience of training neural networks at scale. So I think, yeah, it was in the company for a few years. So so that's how um, I was able to work on this. Um, yeah, at what time there was a need for an engineer, so I just came and helped in Tesla fashion, you know. So I remember even yeah, during my internship, it was so funny because Musk asked everyone to go to the factory to help build the cars. Like everyone, including the interns, including people working on machine learning and stuff, during a weekend. So we all went there. And when you have this kind of push, it creates bonds with yeah within
Mm,
people, and people share their knowledge, and you can have some people that can optimize some workflow in manner that nobody expected. And so yeah, sometimes this kind of push can be beneficial if it's not so frequent, I would say. And so anyway, I was just quite lucky. I was also there at a good time, very curious about everything, and just yeah, maybe I can tell a bit more because it's a nice story. I would say um, yeah, we also had a push to make things work. It was super intense. It created a wonderful bond between people. And after a few days of work nonstop, we finally made things work. And I mean, when you accomplish this kind of stuff, um, it makes you very happy. You learn a lot along the way. You live a human adventure, you know? So it just gave me the feeling that yeah, I had to continue on this project. So I really asked for it, and did my best to continue working on this. Um, and yeah, and so yeah, that's uh, that's how.
the it's funny that you say this because in the majority of normal companies, you do have a certain amount of companionship, right? So these is my colleagues. I see them very regularly in the office. But this bound that you were talking about, right? I did a lot of so-called side jobs or low skill labor jobs. So, for example, this is fruit picking, right? So you're spending your entire day with people, and so this is very hard and intense. As you said, the bond that you create, and you are working towards a goal, right? And then you're finishing the goal, and you helped each other to reach that goal. I can just imagine that this must have been a very exciting time, and you make friends for life, right? Because you depend so much on each other. It's not against each other anymore. It's being together for a certain goal. And yeah, it's great that you say that sometimes, and this is something I really respect, that you say in a certain frequency, right? Not the entire time. And I think this is what I heard out of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but this kind of pressure needs to be applied every now and then if it's necessary. Even though you said coming to the weekend, coming to the factory on the weekend, um, because there is a necessity now. And I really like this approach because sometimes people are so detached from the product or from the service that you sell, they don't understand that they're being part of the whole company, right? So this is the task I'm focused on. So I don't need to help you. I can't help you. But dude, if you really think about it, if I cannot make it, your job might be gone too, right? Because what I do is so important. It has an importance for the entire company. So if we cannot make this work, there will be no your position, right? So even if we do something that is not related to your position and to your role description or your job title, this is important. If we cannot make it together, then there will be no job for you as well, even though your job is far away. I really like that you shared the story. And so, yeah, thanks for the insight. Leaving Tesla behind, maybe you can tell us a bit what happened afterwards, how this happened. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So also a nice story. Um, yeah. So I think yeah, it was last year. I was working with Tony Zhao, who did an internship at Tesla. And so Tony Zhao, he's um, yeah, a very strong researcher uh, who worked on an end-to-end approach for robotics. And yeah, I think he became quite famous for open sourcing his work, which is called the Aloha Act. And he published it after his internship. But I was lucky to be able to follow a bit his research
Mhm.
um, in the making, I would say, um, because I mean we were both scientists and just sharing uh, vision and tricks and paper discussion and trying to solve similar issues, similar research problem uh, with the various tools that were available and things like that. Anyway, so I think his research made a huge impact in the community. It's not the only work that demonstrated that it was possible and easy, fairly easy to make end-to-end working for manipulation, for fine-grained manipulation. There was also a diffusion policy at the yeah, roughly released at the same time. But basically, it was one of the first big paper that was showing this. Um, and so when you have something like this in academia with open source, you could see you can see the potential of it, and you can see how this kind of approach can be adopted in the industry. Um, but even though it was open source, it was a researcher code, and I think I really wanted to yeah to invest engineering time on this kind of approach and to open source to create um, an open source project that would be able to push to scale those approaches.
Mm.
And that's how the idea for the robot, the library, the Hugging Face library that I started, yeah, came in my mind, I'd say. So after 3 years,
And this
at,
is the end of last year we're talking about?
yeah, it was released just last year, but yeah, I could see the potential, and also the fact that Tesla was showing that end-to-end was working at first in certain scenario uh, on real cars, and you could have also those approach emerging in academia for fine-grained manipulation. And I mean, I could see that a convergence, and I'm sure in the next years, more and more approaches will be released on various robots and showing yeah really high success rate on many tasks with end-to-end. And so I just wanted to power this kind of development.
And as you shared how you actually made your way into Tesla, maybe you can share how you guys came together. I mean, maybe for people who don't know, which I don't believe there is any, but Hugging Face is a French US company based in Paris and New York, as far as I know. So there is a connection in having French roots, right? But how did it happen that that you ended up working at Hugging Face?
Uh, yeah, so I think yeah, after 3 years at Tesla, we, that were really intense. And I wanted to come back to something more researchy, more open source, Um, Maybe smaller, not not something like a Tesla um, size company where you have all those teams and something more friendly,
Mhm.
more open. And yeah, I was just looking at various opportunities, um, and I started discussing this idea with Thomas Wolf and the co-founders of Hugging Face. And yeah, that's how we decided to create the robot. Um,
So do you guys know each other because you're French, or is this because you mentioned earlier in our conversation that you always were in contact with other researchers, you were always in contact with other people, networking. So is this something because yeah, it's very curious to show people how things can work out, right? If you are open, if you are curious, if you are understanding that not everyone is your competition, but they can be competition, but they can be friends, right? And yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about this.
yeah, I think it's really you can reach people by building networks of friends, of people that know you, that can introduce you to people. Um, that's the thing. Like we are, um, everyone is on internet, but you have a lot of noise, and it's super difficult. It can be very difficult to be on top. There are many ways to do it. It can be through open source projects that get traction, like what I did with pre-trained models. Um, or it can also be through, so for me, it was, yeah, also your PhD advisor can can create opportunities, um, and put you in contact with people and so on. So yeah, with Thomas Roth, it was the case. Like my PhD advisor worked with him, so he was able to advise, yeah, to advise me still, even after a few years after my PhD. So yeah, I think also he knew that Hugging Face was a really nice place. That's other advices that you can get by building this network. Um, and um, and after discussing with Thomas Wolf and the other co-founders of Face, I could also yeah, validate this, that it was the best place to start this kind of project.
A good friend of mine, or I wouldn't say a good friend, I would say my best friend. So a few years, this is 6 years ago, I guess. So he's into, I wouldn't say computer science. I mean, there's so many topics, but I remember that he was the very first one who introduced me into NLP. So you know how it is with friends, right? When you spend time, you don't talk about work. You're being friends, right? But every now and then you talk about what you're actually doing on friends, right? So what do you do at work? And so he was working with data, and he was working for KPMG, I think it's the name, and yeah, and working with data and very early things with NLP. And this was the first time I had been introduced to it, right? So I heard about Hugging Face much earlier, not because of my own work related to it, but because of my friend, right? And he said there's this company, and then later on, when I got deeper into the business and deeper into the industry, I saw them. I saw, okay, then when they went, I mean, they got this huge valuation, and there's not too many European companies that are so deep tech and so successful. And he is about community building as well. And he was one of the first who really showed me Hugging Face is all about community building. So my friend works for Viviate, and he's responsible for um, for community building over there. And yeah, I remember that this is the reason how I got introduced in this open source community concept. And yeah, on Twitter, my bubble is full of this now these years. So this is the reason why you popped up in my bubble. And then I thought, crazy. So Hugging Face is now doing robotics, right? So this was very exciting. And I remember that I reached out to you, and you had said, yeah, I'm obviously very busy with the project going on. So happy to see that things worked out very well for you. In the last few weeks and months, there's a few videos that came up, very successful, very going viral. People are very eager, and I every time I'm talking to friends of mine, and we talk about Twitter or X, they tell me, "Oh, this is so bad, and the only content I see is so crap." I said, "I think it depends on your bubble, right? Because the bubble I am in and the people I see, as you said." There's so many research going on. There's so many open source projects that are going on, and they're helping each other very openly in the comments. Dude, you should try this and that. You should try this drive or this hardware and this software. Have a look at this open source project. And so I really think it really depends on what kind of bubble you are. And yeah, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the videos that I was referring to. There's yeah, the first few projects that you did with Le Robot. I don't know how you pronounce it. Maybe you can tell me more about this.
Yeah, maybe one trick I would like to share is that on Twitter, um, on the computer, not on the phone, you can actually tag the post with not interested in this post,
Mhm.
and that allows the algorithm to filter the this kind of post out. So you can either follow people or also tagging the post. Um, and that's how I'm able to find contents that are relevant. Um, yeah, like and to about robotics and and research in deep learning and so on. And so X is a very powerful way to keep I mean to reach to have a reach. I would say in the in the community. There is also LinkedIn. There are maybe other ways, but yeah, X is one of the way. So so yeah, I'm quite happy that the video we posted about the robot uh, got traction. That's a bit the way that we evaluate if projects are worth pursuing at Hugging Face in the way people react to it. If there's potential, the idea is to be very focused, make fast progress, and then to test if what you are doing are actually aligned with the need of the community and the interest of the community. So in those, so the first video we posted, do you want to comment on that or? And
It's just what you said is so basic and should be so basic for every single tech founder out there. But it's for to you, it seems so natural. But as I'm talking to a lot of people in the industry and to a lot of founders specifically, so a lot of founders that are coming out of academia and don't have too much industry knowledge, but trying to get paying customers first is a little bit aligned what you said in terms of ship fast so you can make fast iterations so you can come to the things that people actually need. And so you said we're posting this video so we can understand, is this aligned with what other people are working on, other people are interested in. So for you, the way you work is a way that the majority of founders should work, right? Trying to find people who are interested in what you do. Because if you're working on a product for 2 years in stealth mode and not getting feedback by anybody, you might end up working on something that nobody needs, right? It might be the best thing in the world, but if you don't find anybody using it, then it will be dead. So I really like that it comes so casual for you, but a lot of tech founders really missing this kind of very important point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not casual. I think it's the result of yeah, thinking about it and also discussing with other people, learning from the best, you know. Um, it's like you know, when you write a research paper, it's extremely difficult actually to write a research paper. But the best way is to actually copy the people who do it best in terms of the style and how you structure a research paper and like copy what you like and you end up actually creating your own thing because you cannot yeah that I mean I think it's a good way to make progress on something um, and yeah, a nice trick also is that for open source project if you when you release something um, if it's perfect and nothing breaks the first day of the release, then you released it too late. So, so, so I think it's a nice yeah rule to keep in mind. It's like you need to be yeah always focused to release as fast as possible, even though it's not perfect. And also most of the people they don't try it the first hour, you know, so they maybe sometimes they take a few days before trying the things they liked on Twitter or they retweeted or something. So yeah, so I think that's a good practice, you know, when you try to iterate quickly on something. um, of course if it's too broken then the adoption I mean it might send a quite bad signal, so you need to find the right time. um, but yeah, anyway, so the first video we released, I think, was about the Richie 2 robot from Poland Robotics. So Poland, they were very kind to invite us for 1 week in Bordeaux.
Also
It's
French company.
yeah, Poland Robotics. It's actually a spin-off from INRIA. So INRIA, which is a, I would say, more research lab, public-private research lab. And so a few years ago, they started heavily working on humanoid robots. And so they have a really nice platform for researchers, Richie 1 and Richie 2. Both are humanoids on wheels. So they don't have legs, which makes
Mhm.
the problem a bit simpler. Um, and yeah, a note on that actually, it's like legs, it's so powerful because you can walk on any surfaces, walk stairs, and so on. And especially when you have a crowded uh, environment, you can keep stuff and move around and in a very fine-grained manner and balanced manner and so on. It's not possible with wheels sometimes. Um, but for what we are doing to iterate quickly, I think starting with wheels, it can sometimes be better. If you have the money and the power, the engineering power, maybe you can do legs, but but yeah, and so that's why we think that Richie is so appealing to have wheels. It's cheaper, more stable, and we started collaborating with them on this end-to-end project on the robots. And the video we released is actually us communicating with Richie and telling it, yeah, I need to go grab my cup. And so Richie grabs it, put it in a certain place. Then someone else asks Richie to grasp the apple. Richie grabs the apple. It turns around, so there is a kind of easy, yeah, rotation like navigation, early navigation. and gives the apple and rotate back. So there is a kind of a social sequence of manipulation and navigation, and it was our first proof of concept that we were able to do this end-to-end with the robot. Um, and Yeah, so I think we are all very happy because maybe it was 2 months after we started the project, 2 or 3 months. So to we were quite happy with the results. Um, Especially it's a kind of a long sequence of action as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to be able to demonstrate that, and especially we just learned in we recorded 50 episodes with a VR headset
Crazy.
um, of a similar sequence. And then it was still able to generalize. We changed the lightning also. There are some stuff that we didn't show, but we changed the lightning, and because we trained with data augmentation, it was able to still do the sequence correctly and so on. So that was the first video.
So you, I remember that I saw you guys with tow robots. I think so. This is an Alexander Koch project, or I think now it's a company. So they have small little arms. I did a few videos and shared a few videos about him. I'm trying to reach him, but I think he's at the moment a bit too busy. But maybe this will happen later on. I hope so. But maybe you can tell us what is the idea, or what is your goal with this project or library? What do you guys are aiming for? And I just saw the other day that Hugging Face acquired, maybe it was just yesterday, another company. So there's a lot of things happening at the moment. Maybe you can tell us a bit about where the journey is about to go, if you are able to.
Yeah, that's a cool thing with a Hugging Face that we are quite open about it. I think the more people get on board, the better. Um, so in the second video, what we were able to show is that in 100 episodes, using the Alexander Koch hardware, those small little arms, they're quite affordable. It's like the full setup is $500, 600 euros, something roughly. And it's using my laptop, MacBook Pro, the camera of my MacBook Pro, and then the camera of my iPhone. So a very affordable setup. Um, you can also do it on a Linux. Uh, but what's cool with Mac is that you have NPS, so you can very efficiently train neural networks, and I think it will become easier and easier. So with 100 episodes, we were able to show that the arm was generalizing in various places and able to grasp a Lego block and place it in a bin. And so working on this very simple problem with an end-to-end approach, with an affordable setup, it allows to do very quickly iteration. You don't care about um, breaking it that much because you can always replace a motor, you know.
Because it's so affordable.
Yes, because it's quite affordable. So it unlocks very fast iteration. For some robots in academia, if you break a motor, you can wait maybe a few weeks, a month to get it replaced, or maybe more because it's expensive. So
Yes.
with these little robots, and actually it's quite repeatable as well. Like when you ask the exact same set of action, you can reproduce them quite well. So it makes it a very good platform for starting end-to-end uh, project open source project. Um, on for end-to-end robotics.
And because now we are talking about, as you said, a very affordable hardware, and you were mentioning an iPhone or a Mac, and the system is able to run on that. But um, I mean, maybe I come from another direction. So I'm for 2 months now. I'm working for Neuro Robotics, and we are a German company, 5 year old. And so we have a cobot and an industrial robot. There's an AGV in our portfolio and a service robot. And just recently, like for 2 years now, we have a humanoid robot as well. So there will be more announcement in the upcoming time, who we are working together with, and our developments, our results. And I asked you a few weeks ago. So when I saw Meta releasing this Llama model open source, so more people can use, what could be a reason behind that, right? And then we see just last week, or this week actually, we saw Figure releasing Figure 2. So there's a huge humanoid hype, right? And they're working together not only with Open AI, but they're working together with a German automotive company, trying to get the humanoids working in a human way, right? And I think I saw very often that Tesla has the advantage that they don't need to do any POCs, they don't need to do any NDAs. They are their own customers, so and they are on scale, as you said. So there's, I think they have pretty good chance for um, being faster and working in a more real environment and collecting much more data. But the question I would come back to, I'll ask you, would it be interesting for a humanoid company going together with someone who is doing these kind of things open source? What would be benefits of that? So this is more a question that is now like, this is a personal question of mine. Maybe we can spend a bit of time on that. I think I already over the time that I promised you how long the podcast would be, but I'm very curious to that. So, or we can do a separate episode. This is up to you.
No, it's okay. Yeah, also, I mean, I'm following Nora Robotics quite closely. I yeah, it's very cool that there is a European robotics company that design humanoids with legs, like Nora. Um, because we've seen a lot of cool humanoid robots in the US, in China. So yeah, looking forward to see more of these in Europe as well. Um, and yeah, you're right. I think
Just a
they
second.
are
Just a second.
yeah.
Sorry. Ja, ich bin noch im Call. So I think I'm a bit overdue, but please finish.
Um, yeah, so there is yeah the approach that we are taking with the robots is to focus on building the community,
Mhm.
focus on fast iteration, on affordable hardware that a lot of people can own, so that there will be more people working on the project, sharing knowledge, sharing data sets as well, trying various approaches. And maybe what can, uh, yeah, the output of this could be faster progress, especially when you develop a very general approach, like a neural network that can control any type of robots doing any type of task. If you have the power of the crowd, of the people, of the research community, the startup community, um, you might end up with a more capable system at some point. And I think that's why we want to focus on the foundations and move step after step. We try to lower the cost of the hardware as much as possible. We are going to open sourced to announce and the Koch V1.1, which is a small iteration of the hardware that make it a bit cheaper and easier to assemble and to install with the robot. And we have a full tutorial on this, and we'll see. We'll iterate from there. But yeah, you can imagine that in a few months we will eventually have a more capable arm,
Yes.
um, cheaper one, and once we are able to, uh, I would say, solve manipulation, by solving, I mean being able to communicate with the AI through language, uh, to accomplish a certain task, like grasping a certain object, doing a certain thing, and that the hardware can do it um, with a high success rate. I think that's our focus for now. And then once we have this, we can eventually move on to more complex robots, to start to tackle navigation. We'll try, of course, to support everything, if people are interested, so that they can make progress on their own. But our focus is really on manipulation for now. And then, so to tackle more and more tasks on a more complex system, um, with yeah, and being able to do this with the community of the robots, and to share this with many people.
I mean, we will see where this will lead to, because at the moment, yeah, you're absolutely right, focusing on one topic at a time, and then seeing where is the biggest need, where's the biggest progress, and checking off a list of things that are always still very hard in robotics. I am keen to see if you guys will stay the way the company is. So is Hugging because I mean robotics is just a bit just a part of the Hugging Face ecosphere, so to speak, or platform. So I'm very keen to see what will come out of it. And as you said before, right, sometimes some development in one direction has influence on other things that hasn't been in contact with the other topic, right? So, but then there's an advancements, and now it is certainly important or can be important for the other topic. So I'm curious to see where this one leads to. I do think that I need to come back to you and ask you again for another episode. I'm really keen. I think this will definitely. I think this is now the longest episodes recorded so far. So I'm very happy that you took the time. It took me a while to get you here, and I'm very keen to see what you guys are doing, not only for the open source community, but for the Hugging Face company itself as well. And even though I'm not be able to speak for David Reger, who is the CEO and founder for Neura, I think I'm quite confident to say I really would like you guys to have a look at what we guys doing. So whenever you have the opportunity, um, and maybe David will kill me for that, but I would like to invite you guys, and so you guys can have a look at what we're doing. And yeah, I was very happy that you speak so openly and gave so much insights and personal anecdotes, because I think this is what makes, or this is what I hope makes my podcast interesting, showing the people behind robotics. So thanks, Remy, for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, and yeah, with great pleasure to see what you are building at Nora.
Then yeah, I will come back to you, and maybe I'm able to can get hold of you again. Keen to see what you guys will release in the next few weeks, and I can only say talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye
See you
bye.
soon. Bye bye.